All right. All set? All right, good evening. I'll call this regular meeting of the Cromwell Board of Education to order at 7:04 p.m. Alessandra, would you take roll call?
Mrs. Cantwell? Here. Mrs. Collier?
She's absent.
Mrs. Franklin?
She'll also be absent.
Mrs. Kelleher?
Here?
Mrs. Lamberson?
Absent.
Mrs. Post?
Absent.
Mrs. Russ?
Here.
Mr. Schuman?
Here.
Mr. Sabrowski?
Here.
Is there anyone from town council
I don't believe anyone's coming from either.
or Board of Finance?
Nope.
Students aren't here as well.
Okay, thank you. We'll move on to approval of our agenda, additions, deletions, and the review. I did have one item I wanted to move up. Disregard that. Okay, so our major highlight for tonight is the ESS update. Other than that, should be fairly short. I don't have any other changes, do you? No. Okay. Is there a motion to approve the agenda? Alan, second. Matt, all in favor? Aye. Opposed? Abstentions? Agenda is approved. All right, moving on to celebrating our faculty and staff, Cromwell High School. If Mr. Kuckel to introduce.
Okay. Good evening. We're going to start with Mrs. Sarah Turner. If please welcome Ms. Sarah Turner to the podium, if you can come on up. So Sarah is our senior activities advisor and our district health PE facilitator. In her capacity as activities advisor, she has executed graduations throughout a pandemic and coordinated the senior class trip to Washington, D.C. She has invested countless hours preparing for these landmark events. Graduation is the marquee event for a school district, and her precise planning and preparation have created an event that has the class and respect it deserves. Students and families may not realize that planning for this event begins in August and continues throughout the entire school year. Her communication with teachers, students, administration, and families always makes for a smooth event. And in the spring, if you are fortunate enough, you will see Sarah in the front of CHS with her surveyor's wheel. I don't know if anybody knows what that is. It's how you take measurements, essentially, over large areas, measuring and remeasuring to ensure the placement for chairs, the stage, the band, and everything is perfect and ADA compliant. As activities advisor, she had the responsibility of planning and coordinating our first senior class trip since 2019. Annually, this trip is a wonderful opportunity for our students. The planning and preparation that goes into a trip of this magnitude is monumental. No pun intended. DC, monuments, again, okay. All right. Is the mic on? She went above and beyond in preparing our students and their families for this experience. She is a dedicated professional who exemplifies our district motto of placing students first. Her dedication to our students knows no bounds, and Cromwell High School and Cromwell Public Schools is fortunate to have her. Sarah, thank you, and please accept this recognition on behalf of Cromwell High School and the Cromwell Public Schools.
Thank you, Mr. Kuckel.
Absolutely.
Thank you so much. Wow. I just have to say a few words because I remember seeing you at graduation and you had everything all printed out and you're running all around and it was so organized. And thank you for all you do for our seniors. That's amazing.
Sarah does it all and does it well, and the kids absolutely love her. So when we gave a shout out for Mrs. Turner from the kids, they were more than happy to give her a shout out. She cares about every single solitary one of them, and it shows from their own reaction. So thank you for everything you do.
It was a very successful senior class trip from what I heard from my senior and her friends. So congratulations. That was a big deal. So we appreciate it.
Absolutely. Okay. And now for our student, we have Kelly Maher, our athletic director, is here with Michael Anderson, who is a student that we wanted to spotlight and showcase here today for all that he's accomplished. Kelly?
Good evening. Michael Anderson is a senior here at Cromwell High School. Just so you know some of his athletic accomplishments, he was second team all-conference in the 300 meters and indoor track. In an outdoor track, he was second team all-conference in the 4x100 meter relay. He was first team all-conference in the 300 hurdles, and in order to be that, you have to win the race at the Shoreline Conference meet, which Michael did, with a time of 41:51. He was 4th at the state meet. He qualified for the state opens and came in 6th. And at New England's, he came in 8th out of 29 runners. He broke a 40-year-old school record, and he had a time of 40.17. And what's remarkable about this is that Michael has only been running the hurdles for a short period of time. I think the Shorelines was his third time running the race, and he won it for Cromwell. And he does all this with Stargardt disease, and Michael can tell you probably a little more about that. But what it is, it's a rare genetic eye condition that develops from the buildup of fatty material on the small part of the retina and robs those of central vision. At this point in time, there is no treatment for that, but it is remarkable that he's able to run hurdles with this type of where vision can be affected. So he accommodates that by counting the number of strides in between. If you see him out there practicing on the track, he is countless in times of practicing, trying to increase his stride, get it just right. He's practicing now already for the track season, and it's the hard work, effort, and attention to detail that he puts in. You never hear him complaining about this, using it as an excuse. He just works to get better at what he does, and that carries over into the classroom. And for most of us, you know, he's a role model to a lot of the younger kids, and they look up to him just because of how hard he works and what he's been able to accomplish through all of this. So we would just like to thank you, Michael, for everything you've done here at Cromwell High School, but also for his efforts and what he's done on the athletic track.
Thank you so much. We're so proud of you. That's amazing. And I'm sure that having that disability makes this even more challenging, but maybe that's why you're able to go the distance, so to speak. But that's very interesting how you're counting your pace and everything to get to the next hurdle. So thank you so much for being here. Does anyone have any comments or questions or anything for
Very
Michael?
quickly, Michael, when I heard, I didn't know about your vision. I was like, wow, this is pretty awesome. This kid is amazing. But all I kept hearing was, this is wonderful and it's so incredible, but what an awesome kid you are. So to me, how you treat your friends, how you treat other people, and the way you are in class with your teachers, that's what I've heard. I've heard even more about that when I found out about this, about you, which is wonderful and a tribute to your family and to you. So congratulations.
Did you have anything you wanted to say? No pressure. Okay, if you do, just come up to the mic.
I just wanted to give a shout out to my coaches because I honestly wouldn't be able to do anything without them and their support with obviously the eyesight. And I used to get in my head during track making sure everything was perfect, but they always told me that if I put in the work, it would pay off. And I'm glad that I'm starting to see that and see that they weren't just saying it to say it, but they meant it because they saw that in me. And I want to say that they've pushed me through a lot, and they've helped me with a lot during school.
Thank you so much for sharing that.
Thank you.
Thanks, Michael.
Is there a photo op that we want to take? Our parents here?
Can I just say one
Sure.
thing? Yeah. So two of my kids ran with you in middle school. You're always incredibly fast and always a hard worker. Always so impressed. So when I read the article that they linked in our meeting minutes, I was half in tears, and I was actually talking to some other parents while you guys were all at homecoming, and they were saying what a wonderful kid you are, what a great friend you are to so many. And I told them to go read the article because they had no idea about your vision, and they knew you were a rock star at track, and they had absolutely no idea all the things that you've overcome to get where you are. I'm so impressed that you've stuck with it and you've worked so hard. You really are like an inspiration for so many. So thank you and congratulations.
Thank you. Thank you.
Way over there. Yeah, for sure. And that article that we did link, it's an exceptional read. If you haven't had the time to, and anybody watching at home, I would highly recommend. It's a great insight to Michael and who he is, and it's just incredibly impressive what he's done. And the link here too, actually, is he's also one of our PE interns, our new internship program where he is learning to be a teacher and learning, getting some insight to the other half, the other side. He feels bad for us now, so it's wonderful.
Is that article shared anywhere else, like on our Facebook page or? on the high school website.
Yeah, and I'll be including it in our newsletter that we're sending out Friday
Great.
as well. Yeah.
Thank you. All right, do we have any correspondence? I have none. Okay. Public comments? Before I share the rules for public comments, is there anyone here to publicly comment? Thank you. Have a good night. Okay, we're going to pass over the reports of liaisons from Town Council and Board of Finance as they're not here. Superintendent's updates in response to Board of Ed comments and action items from prior meeting. Dr. Macri?
I'll try to be quick. We are moving forward with goal setting. That means goal setting across the district. I'm meeting with administrators, and we are making sure that we're coherent with the way we set our goals. So I'm setting my goals, which all of you see at the end. Dr. McLean, Central Office Administration, looks at my goals and sets their goals, and then building principals and administrators follow suit so that there's a sense of coherence and everything is aligned to our district improvement plan, our school improvement plan, our acceleration plan, so that we're all working towards the same thing. So we're in the process of doing that, and then the principals are in the process of meeting with their teachers as well to set goals. We use, for those of you that may not be educators, we use a depth of knowledge framework when we're looking at the level of rigor in a classroom. We just trained our administrators and our coaches on, it's called the Rigor and Relevance Framework. It's phenomenal. It really helps teachers and eventually students understand when they're reaching the highest level of DOK or their learning. So things that make them not only think, but evaluate, create, and really make sure that they are leaving with a set of skills, of critical thinking skills that they can use. It's not just about a subject area, but it's about something that they can use in life. And if you're any, I could send it to you if you're interested, or you could just Google it. It's the Rigor and Relevance Framework, and we're moving forward with that, using it in our instructional rounds, which we've had two. We've had instructional rounds at the high school the day before, or was it yesterday? It was yesterday. And at the middle school last week, the week before, I can't even remember. So basically what you do in instructional rounds are like medical rounds, and a team of people go in from the school. So you have your teachers, a team of teachers, administrators. We are now in year 2 of instructional rounds. So we invited, for example, to the high school, Mr. Butwell came to see what it's like. Mr. Butwell, Mr. Cuckle is planning on coming to an elementary school, really looking at instruction pre-K through 12 across the board, so that we're looking at what we believe our students and the expectations we have of our students to make sure that we're providing the best for them. Excellent at both schools. So we've been focusing the curriculum team, Dr. McLean, Mrs. Shepard, Mrs. Mullen, all of our coaches have been focusing on small group instruction, direct instruction, station rotation, so that our students are not seated and they're moving around. Yesterday was 119 students that we visited, and 117 out of the 119 were engaged and did not have their phones out. Isn't that a beautiful thing? In the classes that I went to, 7 classes I went into, not one kid reached for a phone the entire time. They were fully engaged in their learning. It was a beautiful thing. So kudos. We're doing a lot of work with curriculum and instruction and instructional rounds, and there's a lot of pressure put on the adults, but we're reaping the benefits with our students. So I'm looking forward to a normal year. Just to give you a quick update, basically what the state has said, the federal government has said that every school district has to decide when we will stop providing free lunch. And that's based on the money that they have given us and when we're going to run out. So Sandra, head of our food department, and Ann Burke looked at all the money that we have and when they think we're going to run out of money, and we have to notify families within 30 days. It looks like we are going to run out of federal funding by the end of November. So students who can receive free and reduced lunch through the regular process. And we encourage we will send out the application again for everyone to fill it out. We'll get to apply again. You can always apply. And that'll be coming out shortly. We're waiting for the terminology that the State Department of Education wants us to use, and they haven't sent that to us yet. So if it's within the next, I told Sandra we may have to just send something out so parents know within the next couple of weeks if I don't get that terminology from the State Department of Education. But as of now, Cromwell will run out of federal funds by the end of November, and families will have to start paying for lunch again starting December 1st. So something will be coming out shortly. And the other two things I just wanted to let you know about, the mental health grant that we had spoken about and trying to get supports for the nursing office for our students' mental health, finally got released by the State Department of Education. They're a few months late, but they did extend the application grant until November 10th. So tomorrow we have a meeting, myself and many of our department heads, and Miss Jillian's going to join us as well. And we're going to write this grant. We're going to work our tails off, and we're going to write this grant, and hopefully we will get funded. You can use it towards, if you remember, we talked about it in the spring, social workers, psychologists, school counselors, school nurses, APRNs, RNs, therapists, anyone who could help us with the mental health and well-being of our students. So it's a pretty hefty application, but we'll be doing it.
Is there a specific amount that it would give you, or is it determined after the
The
fact?
innovation grant is, I was going to talk to you that, this one is determined, I believe they have anywhere between $50,000 and $120,000. So that we won't get any, well, hopefully we won't get anything less. Remember, it goes on need, but we're going to do the best we can. The innovation grant that we submitted, there was a little glitch in the way the grants were submitted, and they told us we were disqualified. And I think you guys all know how I feel about being told I was disqualified for something that I know we didn't do wrong. So I called the State Department of Education, talked to the commissioner's assistant, worked with Matt Lesser a little bit, and we are no longer disqualified. So we are going to be read. Our innovation grant is for after school, and it's STEAM for our middle school, so that we can start getting our kids ready for a STEAM school and have more opportunities to be involved with STEAM, and then train our staff through it. And that's up to about $150,000 as well. Can't promise that we are going to get the grant, but we are going to have our grant read. So keep your fingers crossed. It's an excellent proposal. We hit everything on the rubric. So I'll let you know. We should know. I forget when we'll know, by the end of the month or the end of this month. Sorry, Alexandra. Yeah. So keep your fingers crossed. We really are excited about it. And that's all that I think I have to update you, unless you have any questions for me.
And next time, sorry. So next time, we had talked about having a legislative update, but I think Dr. McLean was going to do that piece. And she's not
I
here,
could do
so
it very quickly.
If you want to, or we
Very
can just
easily.
put it on the next.
There's so the reading of the science of reading, all the things that we're supposed to be purchasing for the reading curriculum. There's been no movement. It's in a holding pattern because everyone is going crazy. What the message was when I was on the call, the superintendent's call last Friday, that we have every third Friday of the month, Charlene Russell Tucker, our commissioner, said, this is a mandate that is not going to go away, so we have to figure out a way to get through it. We have been granted a waiver for 1 year so that we don't have to buy a program, but I don't think that component is going to go away. So what you're going to see when we look at our budget is we're going to have to start allocating funds, or looking at allocating funds to buy a new program. We're going to go as if it was written, and then if something changes later, then we'll readjust. But as of now, there's nothing that's readjusted in the legislation.
So is our waiver for the 23-24
Our
school
waiver
year?
will be for the 23-24 school year, right, Aim? To
Okay.
put it on hold for 1 year. We'll start looking. Oh, right,
Extension.
sorry, it's not a waiver. They made sure. Do you want to come up, Aim? Because you know. Amy's our language arts, our humanities person, so Carrie and Amy have been keeping a close eye on this, and we thought we were going to try to change it through I don't think it's going to change, to be honest with you. Go ahead, Amy.
Can you hear me? Okay. So there's 3 options right now. There's buy a program and have it ready to go for July 1st of next year. There's a 1-year extension so you can figure out your plan. And then the third option is to apply for a waiver, and that is taking into consideration what we already have in the district and then submitting that. Will that be approved to fulfill the science of reading requirements? We currently have the units of study, and we have heard that that will not be accepted. So I think what we're going to do now is go for the extension and then work from there.
So I have a question. When we purchased our programs that we're currently using, you're purchasing the rights for a certain amount of time, or did we just purchase them flat out?
That's a good question. There are several different ways of doing things. There are 6-year subscriptions. I saw one company. So we're going to do a thorough vetting of all 6.
What do we have now? What is ours right now?
Right now, ours is we have Units of Study by Lucy Calkins.
And that is not an approved one, but how long?
That'll never be approved, and I would have never purchased it.
What is it? So is it a flat out purchase where we have the rights?
Oh yeah, we own Lucy
We
Calkins.
own Lucy
Okay.
Calkins materials and
yeah.
resources, teacher resources, yes.
Okay.
And we own
Th-
foundations.
that was purchased 6 years ago, was it?
Was prior to me, so
I want to say it was
6 or 7.
I want to say it was 2017 or 18, only because I worked with the administration and begged them for Cromwell not to buy it because it's not. It doesn't teach the phonemic awareness, the phonics, the pieces that
The explicit
it's too
instructions
loosey
missing.
goosey.
Yeah.
And I wasn't even
yeah,
here.
we saw that.
And I was like,
Our
please,
students, we saw
no.
that. So, yeah.
Yeah, it was,
The
it's more.
teachers have really worked hard to
They
supplement
have.
that
They
and
have.
are very aware of that's missing
They
in the
have.
program, and so we've been compensating already, but that's not enough in the state's eyes,
Yeah.
unfortunately.
So, regardless, we should be updating it anyway, so.
We have been working to, so we have foundations, which was a great buy, and balanced literacy is the approach that we take. So you're really looking at the components of reading. So you're looking, especially when they're little, phonics, phonemic awareness, vocabulary, fluency, comprehension. You have to make sure that you have all of those components. Our elementary students, if they're teacher-created units with research-based strategies through the work with Amy and Sarah and with Graham, our coaches.
And Jen Jones.
And Jen Jones, right.
Yes.
I think we've done a fabulous job. I know they're not going to accept them. The State Department is, because they don't have anybody to read all this information. So if it's not directly aligned with something that they're telling us to buy, they have pretty much told us, don't even bother. So wait and see. Legislators, superintendents are up in arms. This is probably, I heard it on Friday's call, but I heard it very clearly from the commissioner. Her exact words were very similar to this. This is something that we're going to be doing and moving forward, and we're going to do everything we can to support you to make sure that we get it right. But I didn't hear about any money being attached to it. So
Other
it's-
states do have money. Massachusetts
we
had
have
the same
no money
legislation,
attached.
and there was some grant funding. Unfortunately, Connecticut doesn't have that.
So just to give you an idea, for a district our size, with your typical reading program, we're talking about could be anywhere between $200,000 and $500,000. We're not talking about peanuts. We're talking about big. So we'll have to roll it out slowly, but we have to have components in K through 8.
Yep.
So it should be interesting.
Well, I'll definitely keep you updated as we
Okay.
as
Matt
we move
has
through
a
the
question.
process. Yes.
That $200,000 to $500,000 amount, is that a one-time purchase or is that annually?
Depends on which one we choose. So we saw one that looks as if at appearance it's free, but then when you dig deeper, it's really not. In order to get to some of those core components, we actually have to pay for it. So just in my experience, any reading program, I've probably purchased 3 over the past 15 years in a bigger district, but it was only pre-K through 5. It was only K through 5. I don't think we ever got off the hook with less than $500,000, a bigger district. But now we're looking at K through 8.
But so would 500,000, let's say it's 500,000, just to attach a number, is that like a 3 or 4 year contract?
So yeah, so basically what we would get, and it depends, right, whatever we purchase.
Mm-hmm.
Some will say you have to renew the licenses for certain students, and it can be $6, $4, $10, $12. We don't know all those specifics yet.
Okay.
We only.
What I'm getting at is it's not going to be a
It's
one-time
not a one-time,
cost. It's
no.
going to have
Even
to be
right now
budgeted
with
for
Lucy
over time.
Calkins, we have to buy the workbooks, right?
Well, foundations, we definitely
Yeah,
refill
there's,
those every year.
repl-
It depends on what we decide to pick.
Yeah.
Thanks.
And there's
So-
a lot of sales pitches going on right now.
Oh yeah,
so-
we'll have everybody coming
And
and
my cell phone's going off left and right.
yeah.
So we
With
have
sales
to
calls.
we have to eliminate Lucy Calkins, replace it with something from a specified list.
Correct.
And
That's
maybe I
what the
missed this.
state is saying right
But
now.
and you weren't happy with any of the options on the list, correct?
It's not that we weren't happy. I feel that we know a lot about
I do
reading
too.
instruction, all of us, and we only recognize 2 out of the 5. So
Yep.
that starts to make you think, someone's making money off of it. So, and we know that already when it comes to book companies, right? We already know Basil Readers,
Mm-hmm.
it's a great way to make money. I said California and Texas is where they're all written. We're not surprised. 2
And they
out
come out
of
with
the
new
5.
versions every 3 years. So are you going to buy the 2017, the 2020, or the 2024?
Yeah.
So some of those aren't even on the list, even though they're coming out with a new version. So it's a little it's complicated.
So before this came out, what was our plan, since we weren't thrilled with Lucy Calkins either? Was there something else you were working towards?
Yes, we were
And
developing.
now that's not an option?
It's not an option, unfortunately. We were working on how we're building the math curriculum is what we're going to do for the language arts curriculum, which is using the rigorous curriculum design, working with the teachers, looking at those 5 elements of literacy, building based on the standards of for each grade level. with
So writing it on your own, basically,
Yep.
Yep.
versus a program?
Yeah.
which I think we could have done successfully.
I do too. And we know what our problem is for the most part across the district is our students don't have access. All of our students do not have access to grade level appropriate reading as much as they should, which is about 75% of the time. We want to make sure that we are meeting our kids where they're at, but what we believe has happened in Cromwell, through our data, it shows over and over again that we're doing a really good job at making sure that we're intervening with student appropriate materials for direct instruction. But then what's happening is that they're not exposed to grade level materials. So when we looked through our entire curriculum and all of our resources, we saw a lot of that happening. So books that were most should be reading in 8th grade were being read in 10th grade. We've made a lot of those shifts and adjustments. And it's not just about books, it's about articles, resources.
Nonfiction, text, and
nonfiction.
vocabulary are the 2 main. We saw that in our last presentation a couple of weeks ago. Those are our big
Yeah.
strategies across the district.
Walking behind students and looking behind over their backs or shoulders yesterday was I was talking to Andrew today and he said he agrees. We have vocabulary.com. The students, it's a station and they're doing vocabulary and I'm looking over some kids' shoulders and I'm thinking they really don't know what that word means and it's a little shocking to me. One of the words Andrew talked about was optimistic. One of the words that I saw was chauffeur. So the program, it helps them when they're in their small groups, but they have not had much exposure to it. We talk about tier 2 words. Tier 2 words are academic vocabulary. We've gotten too comfortable with teaching kids without using the vocabulary that is included in the curriculum, especially in math and science and social studies, because it's hard. But they have to be exposed to that because that's the higher level. That's the higher level reading. So today, our data, we looked at we'll show you in the spring, but when you're measuring data and you're looking at kids where they start, our kids are off to a good start in iReady. And as far as phonics and phonemic awareness, thank God, we are at 100% proficiency by the end of 8th grade. And we say, but we have a lot of kids that perhaps weren't. So we're pretty happy with where we are as of today, right now. And we have about we looked at some pretty good data. We have some data that's up in the 30s and 40s of kids mastering some standards that they don't really need to master until the end of the year. So my question to the principals today is, are we looking at those kids specifically, and how are we making sure that we're challenging them, as they've already mastered the end of the year skills and concepts? So we're in a good place. The state, they're not going to let us do it. I really don't think. If there's a change, it'll come through CEA and AFT. That's the only way we're going to get a change, is through the teachers' unions. Otherwise, we're on the path of, and I'm not saying that making sure we go through and looking at the science of reading and brain-based reading is not important. It is. I just think that we have the capabilities to do it with what we have,
I agree.
but we don't have a choice.
How does the legislation ask us to demonstrate that we're utilizing one of the 5?
We have to submit a plan. First, we have to submit a
crazy.
survey by December 15th. What is our plan to move forward? Are we going to implement by next year? And then there is a plan that we have to fill out and submit.
So how do we provide them with the evidence that we are actually using one of the 5 prescribed programs?
Through that plan, it will be articulated.
Okay. I mean, I don't like to be sneaky, but if our way is better, couldn't we purchase the cheapest possible plan and do it our way?
Well, we kind of like to be in compliance with the state. That's sort of
No,
one of the-
I agree. That's why I'm asking, like, is the requirement that you purchase one of these things and that's where the requirement ends?
We want to make sure if we're going to spend 2 or 3 or 4, we want to
do
make
it
sure.
the
Yeah, we
correct
want
way
to do
for
it
our
right.
students, and if we're going to spend this money, use it wisely and pick the best
the best.
resource. So,
And I don't believe that we will pick it individually. I think we will work with our consortiums
Okay.
very closely and look at what everybody's using. Everybody's needs are different, though. We may not be purchasing what we're looking at Cromwell kids and their unique needs, and we'll be making decisions. But the components of literacy are the components of literacy. So we have to wait and see. And we'll keep you guys updated. But right now we're moving steadfast. We don't have a choice.
Lori, did you have a question?
Yeah, so foundations is not on there.
Can you believe it? Foundations is not, I believe, and Amy and I, we love to have these conversations, because I love foundations, and I've seen so many kids, and it's showing that our students are learning how to read. It is very good in phonics.
it's considered a supplemental program.
Right.
It's not considered a core reading
core program.
So we're still going to use foundations. We're not going to
And we
abandon
will
it.
continue, because
But
there's
it's not
no way.
considered a core reading. It would be
Right.
something like an anthology is considered a core reading program.
Remember the
So-
basal readers we all worked with? We all read, we all used. I think part of the argument is that when you're using those basal readers and everyone has those in front of them, they are being exposed to nonfiction and fiction grade level text all the time, and it's more controlled. They're saying we're not doing a good job at doing that ourselves, which I disagree. I think we could do it ourselves. I think we need work, but I think we could have done it with what we have and some other resources. But that's not what the legislators are saying. Who knows so much about reading?
Yeah, I was just gonna say. Since when are they extra?
Since when are they experts? Yeah, exactly.
So this is already passed. There's no going back.
There's no going
Okay.
back. The only way we got an extension. That was something different. We didn't think we were going to get. Otherwise, we would have had to put this in. We want to start looking and being
I've already
cautious
been
with
on
our
the phone
budget.
I've already had 2 phone calls with different vendors that are on the list. So
So we can
Carrie
get
and I will be
information.
meeting, and then we'll make a plan to do it the correct way.
Okay,
Yeah.
thank you.
Thank you.
All right, we'll move on to old business. Item A, discussion and possible approval, ESS update, and for that we have Sari O'Leary, Director of Special Services. Call that? Oh.
So Mike and Allison are calling in from ESS. Jared is no longer going to be working with us.
Did Lisa set up the conference?
I don't think it's set up. No,
Oh, I
nobody
gave it to
sent
them.
me a call.
Oh, she set it up.
She
Oh.
did set it up?
Yes. So
Isn't that-
I gave them.
I don't have a number to dial or anything.
Oh,
I apologize.
Oh.
We don't.
220 3300. Do you need the ID? Or they need the ID? Okay. Uh-huh. And the number. Yep.
Welcome to the conference center. Please enter your conference ID and press the pound key.
630-8142.
Asterisk or pound?
Pound. I don't think it matters.
Please record your name after the tone.
No, this
and
is if
press
I'm
the
calling
pound
in.
key.
We've been through this a bunch of times. I think I needed to do the asterisk. Can you tell me the code again?
Come up.
I'm
just
sorry.
'cause you don't want other people.
The conference will begin. Pound key.
Mike and Allison, are you there? Hi, Mike and Allison, are you there? Mike?
Yes.
Okay.
I am here.
Hi. All right. I'm going to start. I'll introduce you, and then you'll have time for questions and answers. So just bear with us for a minute.
Yep. Great. Thank you.
All right. So, as I was saying, we have Mike and Allison from ESS. Jared, who did the presentation, will no longer be working specifically with us, but I have had a chance to meet with Mike and Allison virtually, and very excited to have them as part of the team. So tonight, what we wanted to do is, you were all provided with the investment options page that ESS has created for us in terms of different options that we have for the program. So does anybody want one so you can follow along? And what we're looking at right now is, and the reason I have Mike and Allison on the line is I'm sure you'll have specific questions for them. We're looking at a possible start date of November 15th, which is right around the corner. There is two different options that ESS is proposing to us right now. The first one is a prorated cost that we would start November 15th and go to the end of the school year, which is, they dated it as June 30th. Or a multi-year cost, which would be around a year and a half, November 15th to next June. Mm-hmm.
Are you saying November 15th of this year? Because this says 2023.
Yeah, the page is wrong.
Yeah, it's this year. Yeah, it's
Okay.
this year. Yep, it's 22. So the multi-year cost is a year and a half, like I was saying, November 15th to next year, which would actually be
23. So that's correct.
4. That's correct. The end date is correct. There is pros and cons to both. So I'm actually going to have, so you guys can kind of ponder it a little bit. Mike on the line, just give a little bit of an overview of both options, and we can talk about what we feel is best for the high school. All right. Mike, are you there? Can you hear me?
Yes, I am there. And thank you, everyone, and thank you for the opportunity to speak about this potential partnership. We're very excited about it. Is my volume okay from my headphones?
I'm going to adjust it just a little bit, and then I think we're okay. You can continue.
All right. Okay, perfect. So I wanted to just kind of go over the two different contract options. So the first one, as was stated, is prorated from now until June 30th, 2023. The second one, which is more of the year and a half, would be now until June 30th, 2024. So I want to kind of speak to potentially the advantages of the June 30th, 2024, because there's a few different considerations in there. We are obviously flexible, and so we will take our cues from you in terms of what feels right to you. But I'll go through a couple of the reasons. First is from a recruiting standpoint. There's obviously more certainty when we're talking to prospective staff about this partnership, to provide them that certainty that this implementation is going to go for, a year and a half, and hopefully beyond that. So I think that that's going to help with kind of the recruiting piece for us. And obviously everybody knows it's a tight labor market. We've had great success as an organization. We hired 150 people between May and September across the country. And so I'm very bullish on our capabilities, but it's just obviously a reality. The second is from an ESY standpoint, extended school year. So if you've seen the contract, so extended school year is typically $8,000. It's basically a 5-week kind of program, almost like a maintenance of ESS in the summer. For a multi-year partnership, that cost is waived. And so we would basically be continuing on the program through the summer for students and families, and then it would go obviously carry on into the next year. And then the other one on the pricing side is typically our price increases a few percent each year for salary adjustments for our clinicians. Obviously, it's as I said, it's a tight labor market, and so we want to make sure that we pay people, and we're adjusting for inflation and things like that. And so with a multi-year partnership, because your contract goes from now until June 30th of 2024, that rate that's on year 2 is automatically set, as well as that payment schedule. So you would be paying on a monthly basis between now and June 30th for this year's contract, and then the payments would begin again in September of 2023 all the way to June at the rate described in the contract. And then the final thing is just from an implementation piece. Obviously, it gives us some capability on the ramp time to ensure the kind of fidelity of the implementation, making sure that we can get to census, and just that obviously we know there's a starting point for every single implementation, and so it just provides that fidelity for an implementation. But like I said, we are really excited about the partnership with the school district, and so just wanted to kind of lay that out for you.
Can I ask a quick question right off the bat?
Mm-hmm.
Mike, when you're talking about recruitment and, having the longer contract to attract more employees, I'm just curious how this would be a November 15th start if you don't have those employees yet, or would you be using some that you already have? I'm a little confused.
That's a great question. So just in general, our contract starts, even if technically the contract, let's say, starts November 15th. Let's say one of the clinicians starts November 22nd and one starts December 1st, as an example. Your actual cost is prorated based off of when the clinicians are in the building. So we obviously are, this is an area that we have a number of implementations. We've been recruiting just in general for this area, so we feel confident about, shortly around that November 15th time to be staffed. But if it spills into 7 days later, 2 weeks later, things like that, the actual invoice would be adjusted accordingly for either one person or two people.
Okay, thanks. I think I misunderstood. I thought you provided the people, but I think
They do.
They do provide the people, but we have some opportunity, right, as far as
They do provide the people, and like Mike said, they are starting to already search, in the area with the potential that, we would move forward with this. Nothing obviously set in stone, but what Mike is saying is that if we don't have anybody lined up to start for November 15th, it would be prorated for when those clinicians did start. So the cost,
sorry.
yeah.
Gotcha. Okay.
But
Thank you.
we don't,
Correct.
we don't
Correct.
search
That was a
for
much
them.
more succinct way of saying it. Yeah.
Yeah, but Mike, my thought is, I'm sorry, this is Enza, the superintendent. I'm also thinking just from past experience, past experience, you didn't charge us, but you were able to come in my past district. You would come in and start setting up and getting organized and doing whatever you needed to do to work with us as a team. So, but I know we weren't charged until the clinicians actually started. So that day is really like a soft date. That's my memory. I don't,
That's a really great point.
okay. Because I don't, that's just my
Yeah,
memory
Dr.
of
Dr. Mackey, that's a great point.
working with the administration so that you can find a space, what you need in the space, and all of that looks pretty similar, similar across, I would think, districts. But you
Catherine,
wouldn't,
sure.
right, we wouldn't be charged until the clinicians
It was less a
start.
financial question, more of I thought that these were experts that we were getting that he already had in-house. That was my just misunderstanding, I guess. Okay. Catherine.
I think this is more a question for Sari. When I saw this as an agenda item, I thought it was more of a discussion about how you were going to, you and our team were going to implement this at the school district for the high school. I didn't realize there were cost components that were going to be involved in us and trying to start this so rapidly. I was not under that impression based on our first meeting, and so I'm a little thrown off by a lot of this right now. That was not communicated to myself. I don't know if the other board members were aware of it.
Were you at the
Yeah, I was
presentation
at
with
the-
Jared?
I was at the last meeting, but I thought it was just we're going to give you an update on it at the next meeting. I didn't realize our update was we want to start it in the next 3 weeks. Like that is I'm a little caught off. I would have done a lot more review compared to the costs and we didn't have this until tonight, so I'm a little bit thrown off. I'm not sure if other board members feel the same, but this isn't what I expected, so my apologies. I don't really know what questions to ask at this point.
And that's okay. I guess I just want to reiterate that, yes, Jared did his presentation last month, and we do want to get this up and running sooner than later because we do have students that are struggling. So, of course, there's numbers involved, and we wanted to kind of review the pros and cons with you tonight of the costs. My main focus is getting these students, the support they need.
Basically what happened was, and poor Sarah, she's trying to be so wonderful, as you always are. You went back and asked us to get more information, right? So you had the information, we went back and got more information. The more information was, what will this look like in the middle school, the high school, which we had a good idea of what would look like before, just because of the conversations that we had sooner. The only information really that was missing is the amount of money that it would cost. You had an idea of kind of what it would cost last time, but you didn't have specifics as far as prorated and how much it would be exactly. What we're trying to say is we've looked, Sari and myself and Burke, without giving you too much specifics, because if whether it be today or next month or in 2 months, I can never tell you how many students, because it would be identifiable. We have a group of students who are waiting to be outplaced that we think we can keep in-house, who are on the docket, right now that we have to make a decision on as to whether they're going to be outplaced or not because we're not meeting their IEP or whatever it is.
And we also
Or
have
their
students
504.
that we're bringing back very
we have.
soon.
But that
That-
information we were gonna have, like, here's not the students themselves, but here's the cost
Yep.
of what we are spending without this, and here's the cost of what it would be to implement this that we think we can keep.
We believe, and we could never give you 100%, like as of today, Sari, we believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that we have approximately, that we have a good idea, approximately $400,000 that we could save based on the conversation we had today.
Correct.
Okay, so that's without, now this could change
So-
tomorrow,
So let's
without, bringing
obviously,
people in and not
we can't bring
outplacing.
anything. We can't bring anything identifiable about students. Okay.
Right.
I know that there's a specific number of students who are currently outplaced. What I'm hearing from this conversation is we have identified a number of other students who potentially are headed in the direction of requiring outplacement because we as a district we don't have the services in place here to provide services in-house. We'll have to do that outhouse.
Right.
Outside of the house. Outhouse is a terrible way to say that. I'm sorry. So looking back at just reviewing when we did last year's budget, I particularly focused in on this section because the average cost per student outplaced was $116,000 per one student.
Right.
That includes the cost of tuition for where they're outplaced to, IOL, Klingberg Centers, whatever, any of those types of facilities. And we're also required legally to provide the transportation, so now there's a transportation cost, which incidentally has gone up since last year for those types of vans. So conceivably, we're looking at more than $116,000 per student to send them out of district in order to provide the services they require, which legally we are required to do.
Yes.
It's probably more than $116,000
It could be more. It could
per
be.
student now.
It varies.
I'm just talking.
Yes.
I'm just talking.
If you take an
average.
Right.
it's about 120.
Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
If you take an average, it's about 120. It could be 50, 60. It could be 240. It could be anywhere in between there. But your average is, Matt is correct in saying that it is approximately 120 of an average.
So we've also
to date, because it changes often.
We also talked about the benefits of keeping the benefit to the student and the family of keeping the student in-house. Because when we outplace students, they lose those connections to their community, to their neighborhoods, to their friends. So those are all things that we've talked about. I'm a little surprised at seeing some of these numbers today. I had, from Jared's presentation, in my mind, I had a figure of, I believe, like $375,000 a year.
Well, don't forget
in
this,
my head. So this is prorated. I get, yeah.
Well, and the 530 would be a year and a half. So, right.
Okay.
So if you take that into account, it is about the 300. Yes.
So
Right.
I also, and I'm with Catherine on that. In my mind, I didn't see the urgency in this. What I'm hearing today, though, is we have identified currently a number of students already at this point in the year who are headed in the direction of potentially requiring services that we are not in a position to provide.
Right.
That legally we are required to.
We have put on hold because we're still in the safe zone, following the law and everything else, but we're getting close because we were talking about this. If we don't move forward rather quickly, we will absolutely have to provide outplacement. For amount of students, that will cost close to $300,000. Bringing back other students that we are pretty much sure, we have a meeting, Sari has a meeting, a few meetings. We believe we definitely will recover at least that $100,000. That's if nothing changes today.
Right.
But we feel that for this year, there will be a wash. For moving forward for next year, to be smart, right, we would budget the other because we don't have to, we pay monthly or whatever at the end of 1 year. So for staff purposes and finding the right people, and we believe that we have someone that we would like to perhaps use as a clinician. It's just it's just the way it happened. I can't even tell you too much about that either, because it's personnel issues. We don't want to lose this person who's technically working with us in a part-time capacity that would be interested in this position. Can we go and say, oh, we're going to do it for the rest of the year and take a chance that this person may not stay? Yeah, of course we can, if that's what you feel more you know what I mean, if you feel more comfortable with. I say, just based on my past experience and my conversations with Sari, that I think we're going to be able to cover the cost with, we're gambling, right? We're taking a gamble. We're taking a chance. It's better for our kids. We're taking a chance. We're working with ESS that I have full confidence in. I've worked with them before. I have no reason to believe that, based on my conversations with Sari over and over and over again, and it's been 2 to 3 months really of us talking about it, maybe not, as much with you and as in depth, but us, that we could do this. We could swing it, and it'll be a wash. If not anything, we'll probably save money.
And then can I just go back to the kids for a moment? We have students that are struggling getting to school right now. We have students with anxiety, with, mental health, depression, suicide, that yes, we have staff here that are able to support them, but we don't have the clinical piece. And this is what ESS can bring to us, is that clinical piece to really help these students that have mental illness. And I just really want to focus on the students for,
And
for a
take
second.
those out that we're trying to get back for the financial piece. We have more than a dozen that would benefit from this program right now here, that are struggling, and we are having a hard time meeting their needs. We are
Lori's first,
meeting their
and
needs,
then,
but
then you. Sorry, Lori.
that's okay.
Okay, so say we're looking at in the first column, the 533. How many students could get serviced off of
Yep.
those 2 clinicians?
And Mike, you can chime in. It's 20 students, 10 per clinician, correct, Mike?
Mike, are you there?
That's correct.
Okay.
Thank you.
Yep, that's correct. Can you hear?
So
That's correct.
now you're saying that these are students just at the high school level.
Mm-hmm.
So we didn't obviously budget for this. So, but you're saying,
With
I get,
So we budgeted for, when Sari budgets for potential outplacements, she budgets a certain amount of money, right? Because we know we're going to have them.
right.
So she has a certain amount of money that she had budgeted. We're holding on to it, and we're doing the best we can for our students, but we really can't wait much longer for the few that we're waiting to outplace. Then we are in communication with families, not more than communication, in meetings with families and outside providers where our students have been outplaced. Tell me if I'm overstepping anything with confidentiality. You got to help me. Okay, so where we believe we're going to bring back a few students, which is going to save us money as well. So we have the pot that we haven't outplaced yet. We're
Right,
still
yeah, I
there.
get
You know
that.
what I mean? Yeah.
So just explain to me what this is going to look like. Where are the students going to be? I just have a few questions. Are they going to be integrated into the general ed classrooms with the support from from the staff? Are they going to be?
Yeah.
What's that going to look like? Is
Yeah.
it g-
So, Mike, can you explain
Mike, go ahead.
how the program works? We had it's been a month.
Well, no.
Yeah,
I
she
saw
watched it
I
on
saw it. I
yeah.
watched the whole thing.
If you could just walk us through it again, like what would, obviously we go based on the students' needs, but typically what does it look like? I don't want to speak for you, although I probably can explain it, but I'm sure you'll do a much better job.
No, sure. Actually, I'll defer to Allison since she supervises programs and really runs them. So, Allison, I'll defer to you actually on how the program's operating and things like that.
Yeah, so hi everyone. Thanks for having us. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can hear you. Yes, we can hear you. Thank you.
Okay. So our program is really, and the goal is to really integrate into the community. So it's not so much a standalone program, but a service that is offered to the Cromwell High School students. So, we have group that would be, ideally integrated into the student schedule. So they would report to our class or our space for group therapy. They then leave the space, go to their classes as based on their schedule, whether or not they are Gen Ed students, 504 students, or IEP students. Then we schedule individual sessions throughout the week, once a week per student, and engage the families as well. So it's really based off of their class schedule in terms of when we provide their services. We don't typically pull from core academic subjects. We might meet with a student during a study hall or a lunch period, or if necessary, an elective. So a lot of times in the beginning stages of implementation, we work really closely with the administration in the building to look at the students that are being referred to the program, look at their schedules, and see where in their schedules they can fit a group for the group therapy component. So it's very much well integrated into their day. We just have that space like a classroom. We set it up with our furniture. They come and receive those services, and then as needed as well. So students are able to, a lot of times on their IEPs or 504s, it's, seeking counseling services. So they would report to our room if they needed a break, or they needed a, as needed session.
Can you talk a little bit? I'm sorry. Can you just talk a little bit about the wraparound services too, like the component of working with the families? Because I feel that's really
a
big piece.
Yeah. So part of our wraparound services is also the family component. So each student, we do weekly family check-ins as well as bi-monthly, a minimum of twice a month family sessions. So family therapy. We also offer monthly parent support groups for the students in our program and their parents. So it's a nice parent group, very supportive, providing psychoeducation. We work very, very closely with the outpatient providers in the community. So if students aren't set up with services, we work with the community providers to set them up so that we can collaborate with them. We are required to minimally reach out to those providers and collaborate one time a month. But I will say most often our clinicians are in very much close contact. So we're reaching out to psychiatrists and therapists and psychologists and things of that nature for those students, sometimes even on a biweekly basis or a weekly basis, depending on the need.
Thank you, Allison.
You're welcome.
I think it went Matt next, and then Catherine. Sorry, sorry, Catherine.
All right, so I'm familiar with IEPs and how the process works. So basically what happens is we have students who are currently having difficulty coming into the school building in the morning, possibly truant, right? I would suspect we have at least several who are experiencing truancy. We have other students who are struggling to come in due to anxiety, who are probably coming in tardy, missing multiple classes in the morning. Is that a correct assumption, fair assumption? Mm-hmm. Okay. And these students are either currently identified as requiring special education services or are in the process of being identified as whether or not they require special ed services or not.
Or just on our radar as well, yeah.
Okay,
Mm-hmm.
all right. So, we've known not even as a school district, not even just as a state, but as a country, we've seen this coming. We know that that mental health issues in our youth has been on the rise for decades. And then, of course, everyone wants to say the pandemic, exacerbated it, which I'm sure it did to a degree, but it was already happening. It's already been a crisis before 2019. So we know that our numbers are rising. Now, legally, if we identify a student as requiring mental health services through special education services, meaning they're identified as having a disability, it used to be called an emotional disability. Now it's changed to, remind me what's been changed
It's
to?
emotional disability now. It was disturbance.
Sorry, it was disturbance. Thank you. It's still ED in my head, but at any rate, so if they get that label, now there's a requirement that they have counseling hours. There's a requirement that they have some kind of therapeutic component added into their program. All of that is a legal requirement. We must provide it one way or the other. Now, we have school psychologists who can handle some of that to a degree. We have school counselors who can handle some of that to a degree. But in students who have a higher need, those students often wind up either being outplaced full day, which is a full day tuition to another facility, which is a therapeutic school environment, or some are partial day. Either way, we have to provide for a full day transportation from their home to the facility, the school therapeutic facility, and then back. For a partial day, we do transportation from the home. Let's say it's a morning program, from the home to the facility, back to the school, and then generally regular school bus, or it might have to be a van situation for the way home. So either way, some of these students are they're not participating appropriately in their academic environment here at Cromwell High School already. They're headed for the potential of needing a therapeutic component added into their services. One that and for at least several of these kids, we are likely to not be in a position to provide those, to meet the needs within our own school, to provide the therapeutic component. Correct?
Correct.
Okay. How much? This is. I asked Alan to see if he could pull it up on the computer. I can't remember, but how much have we budgeted this school year specifically for outplacement?
Oh.
Does anyone?
I apologize. I don't have that, but I can get it to you.
Oh, off the top of your head, I would never expect you to do that. I'm wondering if, because I know Alan pulled up some numbers. I'm trying to see, are those just included in that tuition line?
We have tuition and then transportation.
So okay, so we have tuition
And then other pupil services or something like that too, right?
Yeah, but
Okay.
most of the
Okay.
outplacements are budgeted
Okay.
tuition.
That's it.
Okay, rough
But
estimate.
I guess that's not part of it.
I wouldn't even guess because I wouldn't feel.
Okay.
honest
From
about it.
from
I
my
can get
from
you
my memory, it was over. From my memory, it was over 3 million. But that's just off of my memory. I could be way
But I
off.
think that included, I think it included our tuition students through magnets too.
Okay.
Yes.
But I'm
it's-
afraid
Okay.
yes,
no,
it-
no,
yeah.
no, you're
Ian's not
probably right.
here.
You're probably
I'm
right.
sorry,
So
she's not here
no,
today.
no, it's fine.
But I can get you I have my exact number. I just don't have it on me right now.
I'm
so.
just trying to get ballpark here because currently, if I remember correctly from numbers, we have somewhere in the vicinity of 30 students currently outplaced already. So we're already paying those tuition, and at an average of even, let's call it 100. That's a price tag, and it's also them not being participating in their own community, which is of greater concern. Now we've got potentially 12. Even if we had 6, that's problematic if we have to outplace 6 more. So I guess my question is, are we headed towards a situation where when it comes to our outplacements, we wind up going over what we've budgeted? Is that our fear right now, that we are headed in that direction?
That's always a fear. I mean, and you remember last year I stood here
Yeah.
with tears in my eyes explaining how many students we ended up outplacing. Some of those students we could have kept in if we had ESS. So that is always a fear that we will go over budget, and we have to do what's right for the students.
ESS, after hearing their presentation, after looking at some of the information I was able to look at through research, I'm confident that they are a very good program. We have to weigh. I'm confident they would benefit a number of students. We have to weigh is it the best way and most cost-effective way for us to provide the services to the students. That's really, I think, the question that's before us. I think the surprise, and I don't want to speak for everyone on the board, but speaking for myself, my surprise was I don't think I was prepared to look at this and say, let's start this November 15th. I was thinking more towards like January. However, if waiting that long means that we are going to have some students who wind up being outplaced in that time frame and now leaving our community, leaving their own community. That affects families, that affects friendships, that affects neighborhoods, it affects all of that. Then I can understand that urgency. But we have to weigh all that. I guess, and Catherine, I don't want to speak for you, but I feel like I'm kind of with you on this one. My surprise was I didn't expect to be making a decision on this soon. But it sounds like it's more urgent than we maybe realized.
Yeah, there's definitely an urgency, and correct, if we waited till January, there is a potential that some of the students that we hope to support through ESS wouldn't be here anymore.
So, and we also, when Jared was here, we also talked about the difficulty in once a student has been in and out placement for a long enough period of time, they develop a comfort level there, they're experiencing some success there. Bringing them back is a very difficult thing to do because now you don't want to relive the trauma of changing environments. You know, they've experienced some success, so there's also that component too. So my concern is, if we have students now that we are thinking have the potential to wind up in needing therapeutic environments outside of our own school, then once they're gone, once they're in those therapeutic environments, getting them back is just an added challenge. So that would also kind of add to the sooner than later atmosphere.
So in essence, you now are experiencing our exact conundrum all the time. This is what we do all day long, every day with students that are getting outplaced. We literally hold on. We try everything to the last very possible moment until it becomes, we know we have tried everything and we can no longer provide. We have these conversations every single day. So just picture Siri and myself and the administrators having these conversations all the time. You asked, respectfully, you asked us to go out and look. I knew ESS would be able to do this. Remember, I told you I was very confident in ESS. I also told you there was going to be a huge price tag, and you had to do it. We had to do it right.
We talked about an 8% budget
Right.
increase over this. I remember this because
Yep.
I was the one who really
Right.
kind of started this discussion last spring.
Right. Then what we did, because I can't tell you every single solitary thing. In my mind and in Siri's mind, we kept saying, okay, we know. She comes in and says, this is the student, we have this kid, I believe ESS can handle this student. We have a plan that is legal and we're providing services to this kid that will meet their IEP, but we can only do this for a certain amount of time, which was kind of my conversation, and I had some of a conversation with Selena, but it had to be authentic. She couldn't have this conversation with any of you because it had to be an authentic conversation so that you understand. The target moves very, very quickly. Like daily. We are out of time with a few students. And I say few, it could be more than one, less than 6. We're out of time. We would have to do some outplacing. Right now, we know that the outplacing that we have to do, just right now, that's not, if we brought no one in, we're up close to $300,000. So even if, sadly for me, right, even if we didn't even think about the students, which would be terrible, terrible, terrible. If we just looked at this from a financial perspective, it's a good opportunity. Now I'm looking at more than a half a dozen kids and kids who are going to leave our district. And yes, if we outplace the few that we are thinking that we may have to, if we don't move quickly, they are not coming back for a couple of reasons. The transition period is too difficult. We're not going to set, they haven't been coming to school. We need to get them in school. We need to get them services. We need to get them wraparound services. Their parents are struggling with getting all of that for them. We have it right here available to us. And then ESS will help get them outside services, which the families are, because the families have to be on board, right? If it was just for those students, it would be beneficial enough. Then we have over a dozen kids right now that we know that we are struggling to help because we have so many kids that need mental health support every single day. Between our guidance counselors, our school psych, our social worker. Are we providing them services? Are we meeting their IEPs? Yes. does this program, having a place to go to every time you're struggling and having that fall, a clinical component in your school, incredibly increase the ability to make sure that no other students get outplaced, but then to help them get back on track as quickly as possible? Absolutely. So from both perspectives, to me, it's a win-win. I definitely encourage us to do this. I wouldn't encourage us if I didn't think it. I would say, oh, hold a minute. But because of the timeliness of it, I don't want you to think that we weren't doing this. You know what I mean? We've been doing this all along since the second you told me, go for it and start looking for it. And the conversations have continued all the time.
I mean, honestly, you know, this is something I've had interest in.
Matt, can I just
from
interrupt
last
you?
year.
I'm so
Absolutely.
sorry,
No,
but
no, go
Catherine
ahead.
was trying to get a question in. I just want to make sure she
Oh,
has a
I'm so
chance.
sorry. I apologize.
So a couple of questions is, first is this, we know that we have students that are not coming to school. Are we going to be able to get them to come to school with ESS? Like, what makes us say that they're actually going to be coming to school more regularly with ESS?
So, yeah, maybe Allison also. I know you're going to speak.
Allison can help with this, but I know that if we don't try, it's not LRE. But they've had incredible success. But Allison, can you talk about?
Can I just?
that?
Are we sure this is okay to talk about?
We
piece
are not talking about
particularly?
specific
Students.
students.
No, we're not talking
Just
about
maybe
students.
when
Kids
Allison,
know
if-
who's not in school, then who suddenly
yeah,
is.
I know.
I'm just worried.
That's
So-
what worries me too.
So can I just go through my questions and maybe
Yeah,
we can all
actually,
be?
you're right.
So that's one of the concerns is that, you know, we're saying, okay, we want to use them and they'll all of a sudden solve the problem of getting the students back in school. Number two is I know there's much more than just the financial component, but we are required, we need to look at both. That's part of our job of what we do. What was there, and I think I remember from Ann talking about it, were there grants that were given to us or funding that comes through when students get identified at a certain level that helps us?
We can bill for Medicaid services. So
Okay.
I think Ann may have brought that up. These students, if eligible, we can bill through Medicaid for the services, and we get a check back to the town. So that is another cost savings.
Okay. And like I said, I did not know we were making a decision to start this tonight so quickly. So that's
And just to that point, I just want to mention that I did talk to Dr. Macri about whether or not this is something we need to approve or something we don't need to approve. And we kind of went back and forth a little bit, but it is programmatic, so we don't actually have to approve it.
Right.
It does impact budget eventually, but not for right now. So just wanted to let you know that.
And okay, so assuming we are going to approve it, there seems to be 3 options that are laid out on here. One for next school year, one for the remainder of the current school year, and then one for both. If we do not make a decision on next school year and just the current school year, do they still allow us that discount to be applied, or is it make it now or you lose it type of situation?
Is it a question for
Mike or Allison, can you answer that question? But I just want to make sure
Yep.
it's easier to hire someone that clinicians that know that they have a job, especially in a shortage area, that know that they will be with us for at least a year and a half. But then you talk to us about the other piece, please.
Yeah, absolutely. Do you want me to address that one, or did you want us to talk about the school avoidance question and then go into the cost piece?
I think if you stick to school avoidance and be very general on some of the strategies you use with students who are school avoidant, that would be helpful.
Okay.
And then go into the
Allison, do you
other.
want to start with that, and then I'll just speak to the contract piece afterwards?
Sure. So we have a school avoidance protocol. So when we do an assessment or intake with any student that's referred to our services, part of that assessment piece is assessing for school avoidance. What are the barriers? And then we build a treatment plan surrounding to identify what those treatment goals will be for the school avoidance. So it's very specific. We have the family and the student partake in that assessment, and then we, go out to participate in home visits. We offer transportation as well Some districts, don't allow that, but we allow that as a company for transportation in our own personal vehicles to bring students to school. So we go out to the home and provide in the moment coaching for those students to help them get back in the building. We create very individualized plans for those school avoidance students. Exposure therapy, working on exposure to the building, and specific plans, individualized plans, depending on the student need. But we work very closely with the family, the caregiver, and the student, as well as any outside providers. So typically, if there's a student that is school avoidant, we may have preemptively planned to attend home visits a few times a week for that student. But it's very individualized, but our protocol is outlined in their treatment plan.
So just to help, so we provide services here. When we have students that are school avoidant, we send out a staff member. Sometimes it's our social worker, our school psych, to meet with families. Sometimes it's our parents. Depends on who has a really good relationship. Sometimes it could be a teacher who goes, but quite often a police officer has to go for safety precautions, for reasons that we don't have the same resources. The fact, the one thing that ESS provides going to those home visits, getting the student comfortable with the clinician, and then actually being able to put them in their car and transport them to school for an hour or 2 hours and then drive them home is something that we cannot do, but that they can do. Those are the pieces that we fall apart in because we don't have those opportunities. And then that other part that you were just talking about, to me, is huge, that student and family assessment component. We do risk assessments, we do, but we don't have school avoidance areas of expertise like clinicians do, who do this all the time. So you're talking about things that we just don't. And then exposure therapy. Come in for an hour. We expose you to the where you would come, the ESS room. We'll call it something nice. That's could be an hour, and that's all they go to for that day. And then they may have a special or whatever they call them, an elective that they love. That could be all they go to with full support, and then they go home. And that's the stuff we just can't do.
And ESS really, they provide, and if you want to speak more to this, Allison, the therapeutic environment in this building. And that's what we'd like to say. We have a therapeutic environment for our students, in our guidance space, but it's not a true therapeutic environment. And Allison, if you want to just speak to what that looks like, that's really a drive for students to want to go to, and it keeps them in school.
Yeah, it's very much a therapeutic milieu space. So if you think about, we get the couches for a comfortable group space. We have, rugs, and we make it very cozy and homey, and aromatherapy. It's not a typical classroom setup. So it almost looks like a therapy office, what you would look like going into that setting. So but it's also a very confidential space. We don't really advertise outwardly that we are the mental health program in the school for students who may, be fearful of being, ostracized for being in this program, so to speak. So it's very much we're integrated. We have a nice space. A lot of times in many of our other schools, students and staff come through, and it's a very inviting, warm space. We think about lighting, because we know that sometimes the fluorescent overhead lights are very triggering to students. So we create a very safe home space for these students to really do the work and be able to access their coping mechanisms to reset and get back to class. So that's our goal. Our goal is to help them become functioning members of their school community and be integrated and social. So it's really a warm, welcoming space.
Thank you, Allison.
Sure, Lori.
Just real quick, so do we have a spot in mind here in the high school where this is going to work?
Andrew or Ramsey, did you want to chime in on the space that we were looking for? We had some options we've been talking about.
Oh, okay.
Yeah, I mean, we have a few locations within the building that would easily house, and really, essentially, it ties down to the foods room and our culinary room, and once that's complete, we actually will create space for us because we have 2 classrooms that are being displaced until that room is finished. So.
But in the interim, we do have options if the culinary room is not ready.
Yes, we do. Yeah.
So can I just say one
Okay,
more thing?
sure.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Cook.
Mhm.
Yeah, I also was taken aback. I mean, I knew we were getting an update tonight, so I didn't know we were going to be voting, but I do appreciate the urgency, and I understand the situation that the district's in, so.
And just to reiterate the urgency, it was the partnership between, Jared and talking with Mike and Allison about the needs, and we collaboratively worked together to talk about the urgency and put the numbers on paper for you, to review your thoughts about it, and, ask questions. But again, it all comes down to the students and what they need.
All right, and Alan had a question.
In terms of the existing resources that we have, and the ones where we're looking to add, like the 2 clinicians, possibly, 20 students, is that sufficient? Do we have excess capacity there? If we have, I know what numbers change. What does that look like?
I would say right now, our mental health staff is strapped very thin. They are in and out with students all day, the current staff that we have. And I'd like to say that if we had ESS in, they'd be able to serve more students or see their students more often. Let's say a student comes down to the guidance space and they're not available, which happens often for students that are in mental health crisis. They may need to go back to class. They may need to go, with Mr. Kuckler or Ms. Binnington. That will be much better if we had ESS involved, because we would have more resources to touch more students.
Okay, we're adding more, but are we going to have one enough? And if we're going to buy it, I want to use it. If we're going to use, if we're going to have 20, they can hit 20.
There is no.
Are we going to keep them busy?
Yes, we are.
Busier.
Okay.
Yeah, busier than you can imagine. There are so many. Allison's laughing. Sadly, we have
Yes,
so
I'm
many
laughing
kids.
because I know that we are always very busy.
Yeah, we have kids that we know are not special education, do not have 504s, who could be withdrawn, that see the school psych or a social worker, but could definitely benefit from more than that once or as needed, that we should be touching base with. We are so
Can I just
overwhelmed.
interrupt you right there? So those identified students would not be identified, meaning they wouldn't
would be-
necessarily get any services from us.
No, then our staff could be freed up.
Right.
So that they could work with, you always used to be able to get, you could, with mental health, you could get to the students who were identified through special education, and that used to be the law, and it still is law, right? You're ED, you're getting services. It is awful and criminal almost that you have to be identified as ED to get services. We have so many kids with so many issues that could be helped from our school psychs and our social workers, daily things that they can, they don't have anybody to process
So
them with.
what I'm hearing from
They
you
get
two,
lost through the cracks.
what I'm hearing from you two is that ESS would, and I really like your question, Alan, because it's important. Is it something we would make full use of? ESS would actually free up our own current staff to enable them to actually take preventative measures. Meaning kids that are headed down an unfortunate path right now with mental health. Our own staff are taxed to the point that it's a triage. There's lots of Band-Aids. They're doing everything they can to help these students. I know they are. ESS would actually be able to take 20 students. Not necessarily, they wouldn't necessarily have to be students identified as receiving special education services. Certainly they would take those, but they would be able to help additional students as well who maybe were further along the path as far as struggling with some mental health issues or along those lines, and actually free up our staff so we can almost even put ourselves in a preventative situation that way. So from my point of view, I will tell you that I definitely see the benefit to the student community. I see the benefit to our teachers, even though we haven't touched upon that tonight, in the 12 hours of workshops that would be provided as part of this package, because we're training our staff how to recognize signs of mental health issues early, even in young children, because if I remember correctly from Jared, it's district-wide. It's not just limited to the high school. The workshops are for everybody, so pre-K up, right? So now you're putting another preventative measure in place because we're training our teachers to be able to recognize early signs of mental health issues. So I see a benefit to our education staff, well, all of our staff, that way. So benefit to the kids, benefit to the staff. I just need to be sure that there's a benefit to the overall community because this is an expense and a significant one. My other concern is the options that are presented are November 15th and at the end of this school year is one option with one price, which is, correct me if I'm wrong, $229,000 according to this. Is that the correct number?
Right.
And the other option is the rest of this school year, starting in November, and then continuing through the entire next school year as well. And that cost is $534,000, but includes the throwing in of an extended school year program, the ESY program. What are we currently doing for extended school year? I'm assuming we're using our own teaching staff for that. We're paying their salaries and all that.
We are, and to
They're
be
paid
honest,
per diem?
there's a rate in the contract they get
Okay.
paid. But our extended school year for students with mental health needs, we often aren't recommending extended school year for them. Either they have a 504 plan, they wouldn't be eligible.
Right.
Based on their IEP, they're making goals and objectives, regarding their academics. So for some of these students, we wouldn't even have offered extended school year. So again, it's an added benefit. They would be getting a whole another month, 5 weeks or so of school that they wouldn't necessarily have had through our regular programming.
Because ultimately the idea of special ed services is that they are not permanent. So the idea is that we're moving these kids forward in a way that we are helping them to overcome whatever challenge they're facing, whatever disability they're dealing with. In this case, we're talking a lot about mental health issues. And if we get them to the point that they're able to cope, learn coping skills, manage them on their own, then we're able to exit them, and ultimately that's the goal. So I'm going to go on the record of saying I like the program. I'm in favor of it. It's a little bit more than I had anticipated in my head, but I also think trying to do it short term and ending it at the end of the school year would be too short of a time period to see its true effect and be able to evaluate whether or not it's effective. However, we're talking it's expensive to actually do it for a year and a half to actually be able to adequately assess how effective it's been for our community.
Thanks, Matt.
That's where I'm at.
And Catherine has another follow-up.
Yeah, what would be your preference, Dr. Macri and
That's what I was
Sherry, on which option you would choose and for what length of time, knowing that we're going to have to keep it in our budget?
I guess my question is for Mike. So Mike, let's say, and I think this goes to Mike though, not Allison. Let's say we say, okay, we're in it for until June 30th, 2024. But we're noticing that mid-year next year, this isn't working for us. It's not working for our students, and it's not fiscally responsible. We're not having success with our students. I know that's not going to happen, but I'm just asking. If it was to happen, can we pull out of our, like, do we have to stay in this contract? Or are we able to say, this isn't working?
Yeah,
before?
that's a great question. I believe, and
It's a 90-day.
Let me pull up
Yeah, Mike,
the contract.
I talked to Jared about it. It's 90 days notice in order to pull out of the contract.
At any time?
Mm-hmm. Yes, because they need to
Exactly.
give their clinicians time to
Find
find
other
jobs
jobs.
and et cetera.
So it's a 3-month, which, yeah,
That seems reasonable.
I feel it's that's incredibly reasonable. I thought it was going to be different. I thought your response might be different.
So what are you looking for from us tonight, I guess?
I lived it.
because-
So basically, at the end of the day, you know me. I always just tell it like it is. It's programmatically, right? We're doing what's best for our kids. That's my job. My job is to make sure we're doing what's best for our kids. Sarah and I, this is constant discussion all through the summer with Jared, with everyone else, with our administration, Ramsey and Andrew and the clinic, the school staff. They've been involved every step of the way. We are at the point where we can't technically really put it on hold anymore. So we will be outplacing some students within the next couple weeks if we don't go with this plan. I think it's a no-brainer. That's just the way, because I've seen it, I've worked it, I've seen it work. I think this is only going to be a huge support for our school, and I don't think that we are going to lose money. With that being said, the reason why I want you to vote on it is because we're veering off of a different path than we started with when we started this budget, right? I'm telling you that I believe wholeheartedly that we can make up this money with bringing kids back or not outplacing them. I believe that we have a very good chance of doing that. Is there a small chance that it doesn't work? That could happen. Knowing we have 3 months that we could get out of our contract and perhaps start to gain that money is makes me feel even better of that we should be doing this.
we could put it into our budget for next year,
Oh
though.
yeah,
so,
we will put this in.
What would you prefer?
I would recommend
Which one? Yeah.
through the 24th,
Same.
the 24th,
No.
a year and a half.
Option 1, 2, or 3.
Option one.
to
Oh, I
finish
would
it.
say option 1. I'm sorry. I would not
Sorry,
go
we
with
didn't
more than
clarify from the
option
beginning.
1.
We're
Oh,
looking
I'm
at
sorry
option
if I
one.
didn't make that clear. I would say for a year and a half, we stick with option 1, and then we reassess after a year and a half, and then think about these other 2 components.
And what's the chance of getting, once we have this program, what's the chance of, I know you alluded to it earlier, it's tough, but how far gone do I have to be before we could get them back with this program? Are we likely to get the few we might send off?
Yeah, it could be
I mean,
6 months to a year that we bring students back.
that long, okay.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
You need,
Okay.
if you're
I don't
sending
know.
someone to a treatment program, you need to give them that 6 months at least.
Okay,
Yeah,
so
we-
it's,
To see if it's working so that they could come back to a different program. We would probably, yeah, it would
okay,
be
it's not
unfair.
as
to
quick
them.
as, all right.
No.
Lori has one more.
Okay. I don't want to. Okay, so do you need buy-in from the parents if you have a potential outplacement? Do you need the parents' approval to do this versus outplacement, or how does that work?
So if we recommended, it would be traditional, recommending through an IEP that they would be in a public school. So that is without a question for a parent, if they're in agreement for a student to come back to public school. And I don't know if Allison or Mike, you want to chime in on the parent piece. Is there a consent that you have to get from them?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes. So during our intake process and our assessment process, we have a whole consent bundle that requires to be involved in the program.
But yeah,
They'll
to
be
your
letting,
question.
right, they'll be going into their home. The students may be in their vehicles. The parents have to have buy-in, because
Right.
without the parent buy-in, it's not going to work anywhere. It's not going to work in an outplacement. It's not going to work in this
Right.
situation. what I've seen happen is success breeds success. So I've seen families hear about it with being it successful with others, and then they're like, let's give this a try, because they don't want their kids to be outplaced.
But
Well-
some
So it
families
sounds-
do, though.
It sounds like we have to move on it.
Right.
So do you want to just come back to us in, say, 90 days and give an update? And at that point, we could discuss whether it's going well or not? Or do you want
I
some
think
kind
we
of
should
decision
give you.
from us?
I think I think we should give you an update every 90 days, regardless. I think we should come back in 90 days and give you an update. Come back in 90 days, give you an update. You don't have to. And I did check with your attorney. You don't have to vote on it. I just want your blessing. Yeah, let's give this a try. I think it's really awesome for kids. I think we're gonna be okay. If I think it at any rate, Sari and I think that it's not looking that great, we'll come back to you, and we could pivot. You could vote on it, or you could not vote on it. You could say, do what you think you need to do, and trust is a difficult word when there's a lot of money on the line, but we're going to give it a chance. And I think you don't have to really vote on it. That was the whole conversation that I had with Selena and Jessica Ritter. Is it's programmatic, it's what our kids need, it's beneficial. You don't have to vote on it, but there's money on the line here, and I'm making a switch, a pivot mid-year, which is why I want you to be able to.
So is
it's
anyone
up to you.
opposed? Is anyone opposed?
I would actually, for myself, I'm in favor of it. I see the benefit to the kids.
But would you
No,
want us to vote on it,
I'm-
or are you just saying? that
I
you-
don't think we need to
don't
vote
need
on
to-
it,
okay.
but I will openly voice my support of this decision.
Okay.
And I will.
I think you have our support.
yeah,
And does anyone here?
This is a least
concerned?
restrictive environment than an outplacement, and legally we are required to provide the least restrictive environment. So this would be a first step for any family facing a decision about outplacement. This would be their first thing to try before outplacement. So this is a step before outplacement. Any kid who's being considered for outplacement would really have to try this first as a least restrictive environment, just from a legal point of view.
And we'd never want to withhold help from
Absolutely
children, so.
not. So I support it. And I do think in the end, it's more likely to be more cost effective for the district than otherwise. So you got my support.
So are there any other questions on this topic? Sure, Lori.
One last one. So with 2 clinicians, what if down the road, or what if you find that, you need more clinicians and 2's not enough? So then what? Can they, if they bring in more people, then that's going to change the price, right?
Right, there's a three clinician option on this.
So then do we have the option to change to that mid-contract, or? Well, no, but I mean, but will they honor this price if we change mid, you understand what I'm saying?
How long will you honor these prices
So-
for? Mike?
Do you know what I'll do? If can you guys hear me?
Yes.
So what I can also do is, if we're looking at option 1 with the one that's June 30th, 2024, we can also add an addendum, a section to the pricing that says, like, if the district adds an additional cohort, it would be the cost that's kind of listed in the option, prorated based on the clinician's start date. So that's something we can add into the contract. So then it would be just an addendum that you guys could just exercise. But that would be helpful to just kind of put it into the contract as an option.
Okay, that would
Sounds
be
great.
wonderful.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, I'll make that change.
All right, so if anyone, I guess, has questions after, that you think about and you want to relay to Dr. Macri, I can get in touch with Mike and Allison,
So
to get your
February, our February meeting, we should plan to put that on our future agenda. So December, January, February. That'll be about 90 days. And Mike and Allison, or whoever from, at the time, if it could be our clinicians, could come and provide an update to where we are and how we're doing. That would be greatly appreciated.
Sure.
Okay, thank you. And then we'll just do that, Alessandra, every 3 months. Let's do that just standing every 3-month update.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I think we're heading in the right direction. I appreciate it. Thank you.
We're looking forward to working with you, ESS.
Yes, we are.
Thank you, Mike and Allison.
And thank you.
Thank
must
you.
have put a
We
lot of
are
time
the
into this.
very
opportunity.
excited about this
Appreciate it.
partnership for sure.
Definitely. Us too. Thank you.
All right, thank you.
Thanks,
All right.
everyone. Have a
good
great night and the rest of the
Take
board
care.
meeting. Thank you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
Bye.
Thank you.
Okay. We'll move on now to, we're going to table old business item B, discussion and possible approval of relocating the Little League storage shed at Wiss. We don't have anyone here for that conversation, so we'll table that. Is there a motion? Lori, is there a second? Matt, all in favor? Opposed, abstentions, motion carries. The item is tabled. Moving on to new business. Item A, the Cromwell Middle School Building Committee update. I do not have one for this evening. And item B, Field Committee update. So there is a committee formed for the Cromwell High School field. We have some members on it here tonight, and we have the chairperson with us, and he will be giving a report. Reno Farisi, if you'd like to come up. And Kelly Maher, are you joining as well? You'll let him start? Okay. Thank you. Is that on? It should be red if it's
Check.
on.
Can you hear me? Hi.
Can hear you.
Okay. Good evening, everyone. Good evening, Dr. Macri. Members of the board, my name is Reno Ferrarisi. I'm going to be reading this because I wanted to say exact correct things. So I'm here to tell you about our new athletic field committee that meets bi-monthly to work towards preparing engineering plans to renovate the existing grass varsity soccer field to a turf multipurpose field at Cromwell High School. Specifically, the field committee will work with the Cromwell town engineer, the finance department to draft an RFP for design services to create engineering plans for the field. And then we look forward to working with the Public Works Department, Parks and Rec, Building Department, Board of Education, Town Council, and many supportive volunteers to get the project done. Essentially, the project is broken down to a couple components. First, we need to go out for design services. We need to engage an engineering firm that'll come and do an assessment of our existing fields. And we basically provide that engineer with sort of the deliverables, what we need from our field once it's completed. At that point, then we draft an RFP, a request for, actually RFQ, a request for a quote. And then we go out to bid. Once we identify a firm, they come in and they draft the plans. And then at that point, we go back out again and we can hire a contractor to come in and start the work. The whole project could probably take 12 to 24 months, depending on when we get started. They typically do the construction in the summer. We would have loved to have seen the project get started for this summer, but I don't know if that's really practical or possible, but we're going to try. There is a funding component to hiring the engineer, and for that we need to go to the town council, and the town council will allocate funds for the purpose of going to the design services portion of the RFP. Because we didn't budget for that cost in July, we're going to see if the town can put together the funding at their next long-term. They're having a meeting in a couple of weeks for long-term budget planning and seeing if they can allocate the funds at that meeting. If they can't, then we'll probably have to wait until July and the project will be delayed a little bit. But the plan is really
I'm sorry, can I just stop you there? There's
Sure.
no opportunity in between that next meeting and July? There's no other time you can go back to the town council?
to go to they have to allocate the funds in the budget, in the annual
And it has to be
budget.
done by a certain date, and if it's not, then it waits. Okay.
You know what?
Thank you.
I'm learning as I'm going.
Catherine,
It's
you probably know
possible.
more than I do with that.
This is what Reno has been told so far, so this is what we're going under, and we're just gonna say, yeah, they're gonna do it in a couple of weeks, and then if they don't, we'll cross that bridge when we get to it, right, Reno?
Yes, there's a lot of support for this. Everyone is on board with it, and everybody's working together. We haven't encountered any resistance from anyone. If anything, it's just my first time doing something like this. I'm learning, and we're all working together, and we'll get it done. But it's just there may be some starts and fits and along the way, but we'll get there. Then the big part is getting the funding to pay for the actual construction, because so we're talking about the varsity field here at the high school, converting it to a turf field, and it'd be a multi-purpose field. So we could have our football here at the high school, football games. We could have soccer games, lacrosse games, and not only the varsity games, but also the JV games, because you can plant a turf field and you have to worry about messing it up, because we have to preserve the grass fields for the varsity sports. Everybody knows that. So it has limited use throughout the year. That won't be a problem once we have a turf field. We're also going to have to build out so football is sort of the most facility intensive sport that the field would need to accommodate. Specifically, we need, of course, all the accoutrements of football goal posts, lacrosse nets, etc. There needs to be lighting, but we would need to offer lockers and changing rooms for the opposing teams. We would need bathrooms. We would need a press box. We would need a ticket booth, PA system, filming platform, cameras, concession stands. It would be sort of the whole soup to nuts. I can stop right there if anybody has a question, or I can keep going.
Oh, go ahead, Lori.
I'm just thinking about parking at the high school for a football game. Like, how would the parking lot's not that big? So, Mr. Cockle, I'm just looking at you. I mean,
That's what the streets are for.
That's also going to be addressed in the assessment when the company comes in and assesses everything. That will all be addressed.
Forget, we have ECS. Yeah. It's also an option, and so.
I mean, it's a concern at Pearson too, I think.
Yeah, it's
So-
definitely a concern at Pearson. I know a lot of times they park on the practice fields, which if you had a couple of days like today, you can't park on those practice fields. They're too wet. And we even run the risk right now, correct me if I'm wrong, of if the fields are too wet at Pearson, we can't play a football game there. So they're
Correct. And Woodside is right there, so we even use Woodside for overflow for our cross-country meets as well. So there's options available, but when they come in to do that assessment, that is one of the pieces they will be looking at.
also, I don't know if you're going to touch on this, Reno. Although it's at the athletic field, it's for the multi-use field. We will be reviewing all facilities at the high school.
So that's included. Thank you, Catherine. Part of the project, the scope of the project, is to do an assessment of all of the fields on site, including maybe relocating the tennis courts, the softball, the baseball fields, the practice fields. So really an assessment of the entire high school campus with respect to sports and parking. And then the plan is to have basically what they call shovel-ready plans in place should state funding come available. And there are there are a lot of programs available through the state to fund these types of projects. We're looking around, and there are so many towns that have great turf fields. And like I said, there are programs out there that would help us fund these projects, grant money. Senator Lesser got us money to do improvements to Pearson Park. That was a shovel-ready project at the end of the legislative session. He was able to secure the dollars, and we're seeing the project proceed as we speak. So sort of the same thing. Any questions?
No, thank you so much for coming tonight and for all of the work that you are doing. And I'd like to thank Matt and Catherine and Kelly, who's not here tonight, for all their work on the committee. So good luck and keep us posted. I'll keep this as a standing item, and if you can attend, that's great. And if not, you can always just email a report to Lisa Hicks, and we'll read it at the meeting, or you can have Catherine do it. If you'd like, sure. Whoever wants to.
Okay.
Would be great. So
Thank you.
Thank
Yes.
you very much.
We look forward to keeping you apprised.
Thank
Thank
you.
you, everybody.
Okay, next is discussion and possible approval of a girls' ice hockey. Would that be Kelly Maher?
I'm just bringing this to you tonight. Obviously, we do not have a girls' ice hockey program because we're not big enough. We do have some students that would like to have the opportunity to play girls' ice hockey. Unfortunately, last year we started looking, we were unable to find a home for them or someone that would take us as part of their program. We happened to find someone this year. That's why it's coming forward now, because it was just approved through the other school. Fees and logistics are being figured out, but the big thing is it's similar to boys ice hockey where there's no cost to the board. It's transportation's provided by the parents, and the fees are that the students would pay, such as like facility rental, locker room rental, is all paid for by the parents. So we're just looking for approval for the students to be provided the opportunity to play girls ice hockey, just like the boys currently do.
Great. Any questions? Where will it be located?
We're looking at Hand and Madison. Hand is consuming a bunch of the shoreline schools.
Okay.
We have 2 students currently that are looking. We have some coming up in the middle school, and there's a couple other shoreline schools that are going there as well.
Any other questions? Matt?
Do we have, I'm always thinking about, if we have a family who the student wants to participate, but family funds are an issue, right? Where we always have to consider families and needs. Do we have anything in place, any kind of program in place for assistance there?
Usually with ice hockey, it's an expensive sport that goes
Okay.
year round, that the parents know the cost
Gotcha.
well ahead of time, and it's actually a savings to them to play high school hockey than it is to play club hockey.
Come to think
It's a
of it,
significant
that's why
savings.
I told my 8-year-old he couldn't play hockey.
And it's cold and it's early.
Yeah, the early part is really tough for me.
Okay, is there a motion to approve girls ice hockey? Catherine, second. Alan, all in favor? Opposed? Abstention? Motion carries. Girls ice hockey is approved. Thank you. Action item, approval of minutes and motions from our October 11th regular meeting. Is there a motion to approve them? That's Lori. Is there a second? Matt, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Minutes are approved. And item E, action item E, stipend approval for 2022-2023, reference B in your packets. And that would be for female JV basketball at Cromwell High School. Is there a motion to approve the stipend? Motion. Catherine, is there a second? Lori, all in favor? Opposed? Abstentions? Motion carries, and the stipend is approved. Policies, first read, we have none. We have none up for second read either. And board committee reports, policy met tonight. Do you have anything you want to discuss or update? Nope. Okay. And facilities and technology committee, we have the minutes attached here on reference C. I have nothing to add to that. November 15th? Okay, that was for policy. Topics for future agendas, and we talked about tonight the update for ESS every 90 days or so. Any others?
Just something that we need to talk about, and it doesn't have to, it could be the next meeting, Juneteenth. I'm looking at the legislation. I just want you to start thinking about it. I looked at the legislation, and I'm trying to look at the waiver for this year for Juneteenth. We could choose as a district to take the day off, or we can choose to observe it but have the entire day filled with learning, like we do with Veterans Day. The difficult component about Juneteenth is when it falls, because we have so many things going on that we are concerned of how we would be able to celebrate it with all the disruptions. Well, so that's the beauty of the timing, is that right now we are scheduled, if we have no snow dates and everything else, that will be done, and it won't be a big deal. Oh, of course not. So I believe Andrew and I were talking today, and I have Lisa and Alessandra looking into it, pulling up the legislation. We believe we have a waiver for this year where we could come to school and obviously acknowledge it and talk about it, but we don't have to have it so programmatically filled like we do with Veterans Day. We believe that. We're not 100% sure yet. We're checking on it. But moving forward next year, you'll see the calendar in November. We are working through the calendar we're going to bring to you in November for next year, is the it's the 19th is the last day of school. Is it the 19th? I'm sorry. Juneteenth is losing it. It's the 15th. Oh, geez, I don't even have it with me. But we have a few snow days built in, but it's close. So we're going to have to make a decision. And it's going to be tricky, right? Because we could be, the last day of school could be on the 20th, and we could have a day off and then come. We really don't know. So it's something for you to really think about. And then we can have a discussion about it at our next meeting as to how you want to move forward. What I'm doing is getting data from other districts of what they're doing in the meantime. It is an official federal and state holiday, yes.
It was an official federal holiday last year.
Yeah, and we were out of school, so we took it off. We were in good shape. It's really if it becomes a school day, you know, what do we do?
Okay, things to think about next year.
Yeah. Well,
Okay.
next month because we have to put it on the calendar.
Oh, right. Well, that
So
could
we
be
have to
changed.
talk about
We
it.
could
Yeah.
change it.
And we could, and that is true too. Right now, the way I have it set up for today to move forward in November is to bring it to you as a holiday that we're going to celebrate, and then we could amend the calendar as we learn more. That's how I have it right now.
Okay. And we'll just go around if anyone has any comments, updates, or announcements. Matt?
Just a quick follow-up. We had a pretty good discussion in our last meeting about test scores and feeling kind of frustrated that the scores had, had come down and the reasons for it and the plan to recover from it. And I thought it was interesting that literally a week later, the news was loaded with the data that came in across the country, and it was countrywide. It's not just us, which made me feel a combination of a little bit better about us, but also disturbed for all of our students across the country. But it did actually demonstrate that math and reading skills declined remarkably so in some states compared to others. But it wasn't just us. So that made me feel a little bit better that it was everybody, but also it also means that we got to work pretty hard to make that ground up.
Okay, thank you. Alan? Lori? Dr. Macri, anything else? Catherine? Okay. Is there a motion to adjourn? Motion. Catherine, then Lori, all in favor? Aye. Second. All right. Meeting is adjourned at 9:05.